Hello, everybody, Shaker Middle School community. We are happy to be able to come meet with you all tonight and share this out. If you're not seeing this live, that's okay. We're sending this out in video, so you'll be getting that whatever day you're seeing this, tomorrow or the next day. It's currently Monday night, August 30th. With us here on our live stream, we appreciate it. We had some parent volunteers. So we have Ms. Milan Avjay, Ms. Erin McGovern, Ms. Jenna Myers, and Ms. Jessica Deneen. Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate it. I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Lang.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dawn Lang. I am the hall principal for Haystack and Wright Halls. I have been at the junior high / middle school now for 21 years, starting my 21st year this year. And I'm very excited to work not only with my new colleagues, but with all the students who will be coming back to school this year. Then Ms. Sheeler.
Yes, thanks. Thanks, Ms. Lang. Hi, everybody. My name is Lauren Sheeler, and I am the hall principal for Algonquin and Skylight Halls. And this is not my 21st year. This is my first year at Shaker Middle School, but this will be my 14th year in North Colony. So I was a Spanish teacher for many years at Shaker High School, and then also the administrative dean for 5 years at Shaker High School. And I do look forward to seeing many familiar faces next week because I was here last year with the 4th through 6th program, and just overall looking forward to welcoming all of our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders next week.
Hi, everyone. I'm Thea McFawn. I'm the middle school dean, and I am excited to meet and also see some familiar faces. Before I was dean, I was a high school English teacher since 2005 at Shaker High School. And then last year, I worked with Lauren and Davis as principal liaisons for our 4th through 6th program. So I'm also looking forward to seeing everybody back in person.
Thank you for all of that. And we want to also thank Ryan Moore, who's here as our technical support, getting the live stream up and running. So thanks, Ryan. Appreciate that. So we're going to go right to a screen share here. Okay. Can we see that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we are in the wrong spot here. Hold on. This is going to scare everyone going backwards at warp speed here. Okay. We will not be here until Thursday, we promise. That was a lot of slides, but that's not going to be that long. So I want to thank again the parents and families here on the live stream. What we've asked them to do is, obviously we've created this informational setting here, but because we're living it, we may not see all the questions that you have. So we've asked them if they see questions along the way, they're going to throw them in our chat and we're going to follow up on them either in real time while we're talking about the topic on the slide, or we're going to follow up at the end where we already have some plans to follow up on some things that are still outstanding in terms of having some clarity. So like we said, we'd like to welcome you all. We have a number of agenda items that you can see here that we'd like to go over tonight. We have student orientation days, health and safety, the daily schedule, arrival and dismissal procedures, meals, innovation labs, clubs and activities, and there's some other information. So the question's been asked by a number of people. So why are we changing our name from the junior high to Shaker Middle School? And I think that's a fair question. When you look up what we've obviously been the junior high school for many people as parents went through this building when it was a junior high school, and what's the need to change it? Yes, we had a big building project, but really there's a different philosophy when you talk about middle level education as a junior high versus a middle school. And a junior high is 7th and 8th grade, and in concept, it's high school preparatory program. That's what it is. And adding a 6th grade and looking at a 3rd year of an experience in a building really speaks to what a middle level education concept is. So that's why one of the main reasons we were certainly intentional in changing our name to Shaker Middle School. I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Lang here.
Shaker Middle School, when we were creating the middle school, if you will, we also found the need to create what our mission statement should be. And to do this, we convened what we called the Middle School Advisory Committee. That committee was made up of 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade teachers. It was made up of some parents and administrators, not just the junior high administrators, but it included administrators who are supervisors of content areas. What we did in order to develop our mission statement was to work to identify values that we hold to be important for middle level learners and the North Colony Central School District. These values, once identified, were then brought together to develop our mission statement, which is Shaker Middle School will be a collaborative, innovative, and equitable community that prioritizes growth, learning, inclusivity, and wellness as we model and foster lifelong learning.
So one of the priorities and thinking about that mission statement is starting to build that community right away. We're bringing together 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. We're bringing together students that spent very different years last year in different places. So we really wanted to have a student-centered orientation for the first 2 days of school. So Thursday and Friday, September 9th and 10th, students will not be following their regular academic schedule. Students will report to their hall. So Wright, Haystack, Algonquin, or Skylight. That's all students need to know when they get off the bus or get out of the car on Thursday. And students will be ushered to their hall and home-based classroom. Many, faculty will be out. We'll be making sure students get where they need to be. And students will be placed in hall home-based classrooms alphabetically by grade. So we'll have signs up, and again, we'll have faculty and staff very excited to welcome them. And then those students in those classrooms for those 2 days will work with teacher teams to facilitate this orientation. And our goals in this orientation are really to make sure that students feel comfortable in the school building. They can navigate the building, navigate their schedule, know the protocols and procedures, meet some classmates, begin to meet important adults and the 2 teachers and faculty they're going to work with. And then again, we have this agenda here on the side, just as some other ideas. So community building activities, meeting teachers, as I said, walking their schedule, practicing their locker combination. That's a big step for middle schoolers. Cafeteria routines, reviewing emergency procedures, arrival and dismissal procedures, and setting up their planners so that they're organized. So we hope that, again, on Monday, the 13th, September 13th, after these 2 preliminary days, they'll feel much more comfortable to begin their academic schedule.
We have a great question in the chat.
Yeah, sorry, I did see that. Go ahead, Ms. McFawn.
So the question is, when you say home base, is that going to be their permanent homeroom or just their home base for the first 2 days?
So that's not going to be a permanent homeroom, because homeroom is going to, as we explain and we get to the schedule, homeroom is actually going to be first period extended. So there's not going to be a formal homeroom. Many schools have moved away from a homeroom because it's really just an extra transition, and that takes time, giving time to the hallway, more or less. So homeroom's an extra few minutes on period 1. However, there are times during the year where having a home base situation where it's one of the teachers is certainly one of your hall core teachers for that home base, and the other one would be a special area teacher. So if I'm a 7th grader, my home base pairing might be my English teacher and one of the technology teachers. That's my home base pairing. That's an example. But for when it comes down to things like state testing, or when we have other activity days throughout the year or something like that, having the ability to fall back into spaces within halls that are known spaces for students and everyone has to play as a place to go is certainly a functional piece that we used to use homeroom for. But as you move away from homeroom, you need a replacement for that. So we see this as a good way to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Chamberlain. As we start thinking about reopening and COVID-19 mitigation strategies, we want you to be aware that our back to school plan is a tiered mitigation approach. It's informed and directed by the guidance from the CDC, American Academy of Pediatrics, Albany Department of Health, New York Department of Health, New York State Education Department, and the Governor's Office as well. Here are some of the steps that we'll be taking. Students and adults will be wearing masks indoors. We'll be maintaining 3 feet of social distancing when feasible. We'll continue with our cleaning and hygiene protocols, including encouraging students to wash their hands frequently. We will have assigned seating on buses and in classrooms. We'll be leaving windows open when possible. We'll be propping classroom doors. We have more filters that have been installed, and there are some testing procedures that will be in place for athletes, and we'll have some additional information about how you can learn more about that towards the end of our presentation. Just a few more details about mask wearing in our building. So we do require masks for adults and students. Students who have a medical exemption will be required to provide documentation from a physician or work through the CSC 504 process or consult with the school physician and administration. Students who are required to wear masks and refuse to do so will be in violation of our school code of conduct and subject to disciplinary procedures. And just to give you a little bit of an idea of what it would look like in school with these strategies put in place, we want to just give you a quick list. So you would see students wearing masks, there'd be assigned seating in classrooms as well as the cafeteria. Currently, we're looking at 2 lunch locations to reduce the number of students in lunch periods, distancing as well. We are also going to work with students to make sure they're using the right side of the hall to pass. We will continue to have an isolation room for students who might be showing symptoms, and then continuous reminders to wash hands and to use hand sanitizer.
Sorry, too many boxes popping up here. A couple questions came up in the chat. How often is the 3 feet feasible? That's a great question. I would say most of the time, certainly in classrooms when we're sitting, it's feasible. There's going to be situations in hallways where we're encouraging kids to walk on the same side of the halls. But the reality is, if we're going to have full in-person learning as a school, with 1,400 plus students here in the square footage that we have, which is intended for that number of students, there are times when we're not going to be at 3 feet. And I think our challenge is just to make sure we're washing our hands, keeping masks on when we're not 3 feet, following our ventilation protocols, and encouraging kids to follow all those safety procedures. But I would say in most situations, sitting in the classroom, we should be at 3 feet. There was another question about attestations that we're going to bring up a little bit later, but at this point, our district has said we are not going to be doing the AM attestations. So a little more about the guidelines. So we are going to get an update on some of these components tomorrow because, as many of you know, a lot of the quarantine and these protocols change. But at this point, what we've been told is that similar to last year, if a student has any symptoms consistent with COVID, they would have to, as not just a student, anybody in the building has any symptoms, we're going to be any of us would be sent out to get a lab PCR test, and the rapid tests are not acceptable. If you were someone who had a note last year that noted that a child has allergies, that note would need to be rewritten and updated and have it on file to be able to avoid that protocol. Our nurses, and they'll be impressed that I remember this, so I'm going to make sure I do remember it. The medication drop-off, if you have any, if your children have any medications, the drop-off will be offered on September 7th between 1 and 3:30, and then September 8th between 10 and 3:30. And our numbers for our school nurses are right here at the bottom, Nurse Young and Nurse Kuntz. So we know last year, if you were a family in 7th grade at the, in the AM session at the high school, oftentimes students were able to Zoom into classes. We had moments in 4 through 6 where certain students were Zooming into classes. If obviously when the whole cohort, because we were cohorted in 4 through 6, we weren't in 7, 8. Whole cohorts were quarantined, they were Zooming in. We have a little more of a robust plan, and we're going to avoid Zooming into classes because when you Zoom into classes, it's a loss for both the students at home as well as the students in person. It's really a highly compromised instructional setting. So we have staff that are going to be on the ready and staff that are certified and in our instructional areas of need to be able to support if, hopefully it doesn't happen, if students were to be quarantined, so that we could have live support for them more than just sort of a morning check-in. Because I think, as we're having to learn to live with COVID right now, we cannot sacrifice another year of instruction. So we're working on that. We have some good foundations in place, and hopefully we don't have to exercise them at any great rate.
There are a few questions in the chat, Mr. Chamberlain. Do you want to take a moment?
Sure.
Okay, so one question is the location of the isolation room.
So the isolation room is a full-size classroom. It's just next to the main office. If you were in the 4 through 6 building, it's the same room as last year. If you know the junior high, if you were to enter the original entrance and take a left, it's the first room on the left. It actually used to be a science room. That room, we have to have isolation rooms, have to have open windows. They need to be in proximity to the nurse's office. It also allows us to use the main office bathroom, which is a single stall bathroom, so it can be cleaned quickly and there's no interaction with multiple groups of students.
And then we have one more question. It says that with the first occurrence, a test will be required, but can students get notes prior to the first day of school?
It's my understanding that if you have a child that has recurring allergies or something else that would induce a seemingly COVID symptom, that you can have a note. You could drop it off probably with our nurses during those medication drop-off times. Or you probably could fax it to us as well. That would be fine as well. Thank you. Those are great questions.
Hey, our daily schedule. And first, I'd like to clarify that we are aware that there have been a couple instances this week and last week where students have found a way to access schedules. Please disregard those schedules, as the finalized schedules will be posted later this week. And we will email the community to let you know when the finalized schedules are available for students. Any schedules students have seen prior to that time are still in flux as we continue to work on balancing classes and making sure students have the correct courses on their schedule. So as you can see, we have an 8-period day. Now, when your child receives their schedule, you will also note that there will be a period 0 above period 1. Period 0 is a period that is set aside for those students who are taking classes at the high school. That is not for the majority of our students. So the majority of schedules will show a blank in period 0, and that's okay. There are only a handful of students who are enrolled at the high school, and one course of studio art among them. So our schedule, you can see that the first period is extended. It is longer than 40 minutes. It's 47 minutes because that's where we built in homeroom time. And we need to get back to that slide. Okay, thank you.
I apologize.
That's okay. So that's why period 1 is extended, because the first 7 minutes of that period will be homeroom, where we will do announcements, and if there are things that we have to pass out or collect from students, that will happen in period 1. We have 4 minutes of passing time between classes. So you can see between periods 1 and 2, between 2 and 3, between 3 and 4A, there and so on. There are 4 minutes for students to get from room to room where they need to be. The hall assignments will be posted, and that will be going out tomorrow. It'll be in the portal. And finalized schedules will be released by Friday at the latest. As we go back to looking at the schedule, students will see that they may have a class periods 4A, B. That would be a full 40-minute period. They may instead have a class 4BC, and I have to jump up to get the lights to go on in this office, so hold on.
That's part of saving taxpayer dollars. Our lights go off automatically after about
Okay, got some
10
exercise.
to 12 minutes. You have to rail and do jumping jacks.
The same is true of our period 5 slot. You might have a class 5AB, or you might have a class 5BC. The A and C slots are half-hour slots that are dedicated to lunches and to additional services that students may have, whether it be ENL services or special education services or remedial services. They would fall into those 30-minute periods. So I might be student A, I might have lunch 4A, and then I'd go to a class 4BC. I might have a study hall 5A and go to a class 5BC. Those periods 4 and 5 are the only ones that are set up that way. The rest of our periods are regular 40 minutes. And going to go over all of this with kids when they come in. They'll get lots of support and assistance in making sure that they get to where they need to be when they need to be there.
Part of our orientation is going to be to run a mock schedule for, kind of like the concept of what, if you're familiar with what we've done for open house in the past, where you go to a classroom, you're there for a few minutes, then you transition to the next one. We're going to do that with students on the second day, on that Friday, the 10th, to help with this.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, Mr. Chamberlain, I did think there was one question related to that scheduling. For those parents whom this is their first experience with the district, hall assignments are for their entire time in the school, correct?
That is correct.
Great, thank you. So a couple more procedures just for, day in and day out for our students and families. Arrival and dismissal. Arrival will begin at 8:45. Dismissal will begin at 4:05, and we will have a late bus at 4:50. There is transportation information posted right now on IC, and we have a little more to discuss about that in our question and answer section of this presentation. But the basics for arrival and dismissal are that student access to Shaker Middle School begins at 8:45 a.m. through the cafeteria. Students arriving between 8:45 and 8:55 will enter the cafeteria, can be in that space, and then will be released at 8:55 to go to homeroom in period 1. We anticipate many drop-offs to be arriving within that window and buses to be following pretty closely after. We're going to use the cafeteria as the main entrance for the beginning of school until 9:10. And then once school begins, any student coming after will need to check in through the main office. Our 4 through 6 intermediate families are used to, and we're used to seeing 6 different entrances and kind of, different ways to be entering and exiting the building. And this year we are just going to use that cafeteria to make sure that we can keep the building secure for our students and monitor it much better, because we'll have all that faculty and adults there. So period 1 begins at 9:10 and also includes 7 minutes of homeroom. dismissal is at 4:05, and then late buses leaving from the middle school at 4:50 will include students who are staying after for different school activities and clubs. We will be getting them home at 4:50. So I think I did see one question pop up there. Ms. McFawn, do you have that? Are you looking at it?
It says, when students wait in the cafeteria, how will we ensure 3 feet? I think that's where the adults come in and are encouraging them to keep 3 feet. We've all done that for last year. Is it perfect? Nope, it's not perfect. Especially when students are excited, as all of our kids are, to talk to their peers, and they don't want to be shouting at each other from 3 feet away. The idea is keeping masks on. If the cafeteria gets too many students in it, depending on how drop-off is going, we can release students prior to 8:55. One thing is we don't want to amass so many students in our cafeteria, but we do think with the parent drop-off starting at 8:45, buses we think won't start coming until about a couple minutes before 9. We'll have to see how that goes and just make adjustments accordingly. But the question's a good one, and it's constant reminders to keep some distance between you all, just because we're fighting against child nature to have relationships with each other. Oftentimes they're really good, but it's hard for them all to keep that frontal lobe, and that's why we're there as adults to keep those reminders, and we're hoping you're doing that at home as well.
So the next part of arrival and dismissal does have to do with families dropping off and picking up our students. And I just want to say a big thank you to all of our families last year who did this, because no matter if you were dropping off at SJHS or students that were in the junior high, or if you were in 4 through 6, I think we went through about 10 different routes and iterations of paths and all of that. So we really appreciate it, and we promise it's going to be a little more straightforward this year. So for families dropping off and picking up, again, you want to start doing that at 8:45 a.m. and we are going to use the high school entrance. So the high school entrance and exiting. So you're going to stay over on that high school campus. So you use the high school entrance when dropping off or picking up. You're going to follow the drop-off traffic through the entire designated lane, and you're going to exit the high school back onto Route 155. There's a long kind of sidewalk there. We're going to have plenty of adults there to help you, and that's where you'll be dropping off and picking up students. Students should be dropped off and picked up in front of the high school. It's just past kind of the main circle there, and staff will be present to assist. And if your student, though, has some heavy equipment or sports equipment or an instrument, they can be dropped off or picked up at the middle school campus in the interior drop-off circle. However, you just have to remember that this is where all the buses are going to be, so that will be heavy with bus traffic at those drop-off and pickup times.
We have a question. The question is, this routine is only for regular arrival and dismissal, not for appointment. So a clarifying question.
Yes, that's a great question. Yep, this is for AM and PM, regular arrival, regular dismissal. If you're picking up early, and we're going to actually look at, it's right there. We'll discuss that. But yes, this is just the day in and day out drop off and pick up.
Thanks for the question and the segue. So speaking of late arrivals and early dismissals, I'll share with you just some general information about how to communicate with the school when you'll be picking up, dropping off, or if your child will be absent. So if your child is going to be absent, late, or picked up early, please email or call your child's hall secretary as soon as possible. We will be sending home refrigerator magnets this year by hall that will have the specific number and contact information for your child's hall, which should make it very easy to reach out to us when you need to. For all late arrivals and early dismissals, you'll go through the main office. So please be sure your child has a note. Parents and guardians do not need to enter the building when dropping students off late or from appointments. But if you are picking up a student, you will need to come in so that that child can be signed out. Please use the student drop-off lane in the main parking area, and you are welcome to park in that main parking area as well. Beneath, you'll see the contact information. So we have a dedicated attendance email. We have one for Algonquin and Skylight Halls and one for Haystack and Wright Halls. And then underneath, you'll see the specific phone numbers and extensions of those hall secretaries. This information will also go home to you on a magnet that will make it really accessible.
One other piece I wanted to add, I just thought of that if you are coming into the building physically for a meeting, which we may have some of, you would need to bring your license, because to get in past the secure vestibule, we have to scan your license through what's called our Raptor system, which is a system we used 2 years ago in many of the buildings. It runs your license against the sex offender registry, verifying that we're not allowing people into the building who are on that registry. So for meals, breakfast and lunch, breakfast is going to be grab and go. Students are going to eat in homeroom after they grab their breakfast. We don't have a space to space students out, as many students as probably want breakfast. Please know that breakfast and lunch are free all year again this year. For lunchtime, right now our plan is 6th graders are going to eat in assigned seats in the gymnasium. Our lunch is having everyone eat in the lunchroom. It's too many students. Although we think we might be able to do 3 feet, I think we're trying to exceed that what has been laid out. So we're going to start with 6th grade eating in the gym at this point in time. 7th and 8th graders are also going to have assigned seats in the cafeteria. It's going to be pretty strict in the beginning. We need to be tight for obvious reasons. It's always easier to let up a little bit. Right now, we don't have recess planned, but we are looking at, as we get underway, the possibility, our lunches are half hour long. If we can do 15 minutes outside and then 15 minutes to eat, it would certainly be great to do that. But with all of the moving pieces right now, we want to start with this plan. And if we can get to that, that's what we'll do. All students are going to go, we used to delivered lunches. It's really not feasible with this many students to deliver lunches. Additionally, we don't have the space because there are classes going on in those spaces. So students will all go through the lines. So if 6th graders are going to go through the lines and go to the gym, 7th and 8th graders are going to go to the line and eat right in the cafeteria.
We have a few questions related to the cafeteria and lunch.
So the questions about who's deciding about assigned seats, at least initially, we're going to put students in assigned seats. We've talked about other ways to involve student choice, and we may implement those, but we need to be, there's a lot of moving parts to start the year, and safety and organization need to be up there. So we're going to have assigned seats for them first. The other question came out is, are all 6th through 8th eating at the same time? We have 4 lunches scheduled right now. And yes, that's a great question. Each of those lunches has a blended group of 6th through 8th graders. So the thinking that our 6th graders really certainly have no opportunity to be vaccinated at this point in time, giving them a little more space in the gym, and our 7th and 8th graders, although they'll also be at least 3 feet apart, they would be in the cafeteria. The other thinking on that is our 6th graders have 2 more years at this school. Our 8th graders and our 7th graders only have a year or 2 years. Our 8th graders who spent half already at the high school, half of the day last year, we really want to make sure our 8th graders have an experience this year that includes what we're trying to offer at the middle level. Thank you for those questions. Okay, so our innovation labs. We have these innovation labs that we have started. We have had teachers apply and have been interviewed and selected to run these labs. They're all teachers who have been teachers in North Colony already. They are jumping out of their traditional role to teach these labs, and it's a really positive risk, and they spend a lot of time collaborating with other teachers this summer to get these planned out. So our labs include a coding and robotics lab, humanities lab, makerspace, a clean tech lab, health and wellness lab, and a simulation lab. And these labs are obviously, they overlap some of our existing curriculum. really the idea here is, you'll see on the next slide, is really sort of freeing some teachers to write their own curriculum and giving kids opportunities to engage in different ways in learning. So what is this going to look like? Sixth graders are going to have a lab period scheduled every day when you see their schedule. And in order to get seventh and eighth graders some exposure, which is important, it certainly won't be the frequency of sixth graders, but every 5 weeks, there's going to be 3 days where if I'm a seventh grader, I won't have my, let's say, math class those 3 days. I will be going to one of the innovation labs. The periods that are missed will rotate, so it's not always the same academic period. It's going to be done, through the hall system in terms of who's going to which labs. So here are the axioms created by our innovation teachers. And I think this does define what we're targeting for these labs. In this space, we are all students, and in this space, we are all teachers. Mistakes will happen. In fact, they are supported, expected, and respected. Innovation spaces are brave spaces for students to work collaboratively to practice helpful, lifelong skills such as creativity, self-compassion, expression of authenticity, connection, vulnerability, and courage. And so we're going to have these posted, and this is what our goal is in these spaces, to make mistakes and learn from making mistakes. And it's not that these don't exist throughout the building. This is a goal in many spaces, but we really have put a lot of time, energy, and resources into these spaces. And I'm really excited that our students are going to get to experience this, and our staff as well. Okay.
All students will be introduced to each lab throughout the school year, yes.
Well, Ms. Lang, I don't know that I am working on the schedule for the rotation of 7, 8. I don't know that, I don't want to say with certainty that every group of 7th and 8th graders will get to all 6 labs. I'm thinking they should at least get to 4, maybe 5, but there's probably a way we can figure out how to get exposure to each of them.
Okay, but 6th graders will?
Yes, 6th graders will.
There's a follow-up question. Is the reason for 7th and 8th graders only having every 5 weeks because they have FACS classes and tech classes?
Yeah, that's certainly part of it. And we're also, we're starting some labs at the elementary level as well, and really trying to build it and then let it grow up. Once 6th graders have these skills, they won't need to access these labs as much moving forward. But yes, the FACS, there's a bunch of overlay for FACS. I also think that our 7th and 8th graders will have some club opportunities that are involving the concepts of the innovation labs, but that's a good question. And yes, that is one of the reasons.
All right, and speaking about opportunities to be innovative and express your creativity, I'm going to talk a little bit about clubs. And so we have a number of clubs that are offered to students, and the great thing is that there are going to be more. And so students can suggest clubs, staff members can suggest clubs as well. There's a larger, more complete list on our Shaker Middle School website, but I did want to highlight just a variety of different interests to give you a sense of what are some of those opportunities for students to become involved in the school community. And so our clubs offer a wide range of activities and learning experiences. A really nice feature is that we're going to have some meeting times built into our school day and some after school times as well to participate. And there'll also be a club fair later in September, so that way students have a greater opportunity to hear from other students about why these clubs are of interest to them. And then if a club happens before school, students can ride the high school buses in.
Okay, athletics. 7th and 8th graders are eligible to play modified sports. These practice times for modified level sports will not interfere with the school day, but at times, students on these teams may need to leave early for athletic contests. For our 7th and 8th graders who play up at the junior varsity and varsity level through the athletic placement process, the athletic department has worked with families to ensure that our student athletes can participate with minimal academic impact. Testing procedures for athletes in high-risk sports will be in place. These are sports such as girls volleyball and football for this upcoming season. We do have another event that will provide more specifics regarding athletics. That is tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. And we have put in the slideshow how to access that information. It will be a youtube.com/Shaker Athletics. And again, that will be a presentation that occurs tomorrow evening at 7 p.m.
Ms. Lang, there was a question in the chat asking if clubs, a good question, are clubs open through 6th graders and 7th and 8th graders or just 7th and 8th graders?
Our clubs are open to all of our students.
And the reason why it's New York State Public High School Athletic Association rules about only 7th and 8th graders being eligible to play modified sports. That's not a North Colony rule. That is a state eligibility rule. We are looking to have intramurals that are open to all students underway probably midway through the fall. Good question. So the Shaker Middle School PTA. So our current leadership board includes Ms. Lisa Bufflane, who's the president. Our vice president seat is open. Ms. Mary Alber is a secretary, and the treasurer is Michelle Thomas. And I'm not sure, I think our board rep is being updated. I'm not sure that is yet. But ironically here, all of these folks on here no longer have kids that are in Shaker Middle School. So we are looking for other people that might be interested to help. We already have 40 members this year and are looking for more. Thank you all that have signed up. It's $10. You can sign up. Whatever I feel like, I'm on a whatever they are, the fundraiser shows, whatever support you want to give, whether it's just to sign up or if you want to be an active part or if you want to have a role as an officer, we're looking to have anyone who's willing to help out. So thank you. Some of the activities that we support as a PTA include book fairs, apparel sales, hall competition prizes, movie nights, 8th grade gift, teacher appreciation luncheon. We also meet with this group as administrators. We come to these meetings as well, and we often bounce ideas and concepts off you all for some feedback. And that can help. Like I mentioned, at this point, our board members all have students, and they're still willing to serve, which is amazing. But as you can imagine, that's kind of a challenge when you don't have students in the building anymore. So any help we can all jump in with would be great. There is a meeting scheduled for Tuesday, September 14th at 6:30 that we'll send out a reminder for. The main purpose of that meeting is to change our name from the Shaker Junior High PTA to the SMS PTA, but there'll be other agenda items as well. Those meetings are going to be Zoom, so you can watch it from wherever you are. That would be great. Okay. Oh, yes, it's via Zoom. Thank you. Good question. So there's existing unknowns, right? We're all sort of scarily getting used to the existing unknowns. We don't have updates on exactly what some of your questions, the number you filled out questions in the Google form that we sent out. Thank you for doing those, by the way. They're really helpful in guiding us as we put this together. What constitutes a direct exposure and results in quarantine at school? We pass that on because we have not gotten complete guidance on this. We do have a meeting tomorrow afternoon where we're hoping that we can hear a little more about exactly what is expected in terms of identifying direct contacts, as well as that's the same question and answer for how long is the quarantine? We're not sure. I mean, I've heard variations about a number of different pieces, but we don't want to give you the wrong information because it's not solid yet. I know it's uncomfortable because we're starting school in week and a half, but that's where it is. And when we get that information, we will get it to you. So what steps do we take to help students return to school and relieve anxiety? For the first one is that that orientation concept was developed by a group of teachers. It wasn't an administrative idea. That was a group of teachers that came together in the beginning of August to talk about that transitional support. We also have added on 2 additional counselors that are going to cover our 6th grade. Those counselors will be getting into classrooms. They're also going to be doing a needs assessment survey to be able to figure out how we need to best help students. I think sometimes we often lean towards thinking we know what kids need, but they're actually right in front of us and we can ask them, which is really a good resource. And those pieces will be going on. Counselors will continue to go into the classrooms throughout the year. We have a student assistance counselor, Ms. Stacy Angel, who is available to students. We also have Mr. Marvin Horn, one of our social workers who is in the building at all times and is available to assist students as well. Those are the main pieces for that. Will students be changing for PE? We just found out today that students are not going to be required to change for PE for Q1. I think that's going to be reassessed as time goes on, but that's at least where we're starting. Will we be able to drop off supplies before school starts? Again, these are questions that didn't quite fit in our slides that we wanted to address. We don't want to leave you hanging. We're not going to have a student supply drop off, but we're also not going to say, hey, please load your students up with everything on the supply list and send them to school. We are really going to have them start with some minimal components when they come in on Thursday the 9th, and we will send that information out early next week, but it's likely going to be like this: a notebook, a writing utensil, a Chromebook, and their lunch. The rest of it we can start bringing in slowly over the next few days. Another good question was, is the district mandating vaccinations for all eligible faculty and staff and students? We're passing that question on to our district leadership. I can tell you at this point that's not mandated. Why are the daily attestations about cold allergy symptoms no longer in place? Again, that I think Mr. Corwood can address at a PAC meeting. I think those are more district-wide questions that I don't want to make suppositions about. Up-to-date transportation information. All the transportation information is posted on IC. We also noted, we got some calls today that there seems to be some times that are pretty late in relationship to the start of the school day. We're going to keep monitoring that. And please know that we have gotten pretty good at making adjustments here at school, and we are not going to be starting the school day if buses are late on any sort of a consistent way. So we will make adjustments as needed to make sure every student has access to their full academic experience. But so I guess I would just take those bus times with a grain of salt right now, because we're going to a whole new bus transportation schedule, and they're going to be ironing out some kinks. So I think we just need to keep that in mind. Also, if your student's taking a bus home in the afternoon, please know that if you've gone to any of our late schools like Latham Ridge, Loudonville, or Forts Ferry, the first couple weeks of school, since the buses are the last run in the district, any sort of hiccup that happened in the run yields complications and time sucked and added to the end of the run. So I'm not going to be at all surprised. I don't think we are, if our buses are quite late on the first few days of school getting kids home. That has been pretty consistent before we even changed schedules. So I think we can all anticipate kids getting home on the later side for the first few weeks of school. And like we said, if there are things that don't settle and we need to make adjustments, I think we can do that.
We have a few questions in the chat. The first is, as a new parent to the middle school, when they are assigned a locker, is it their locker for all 3 years since they stay in the same hall?
That has not been the practice in the past. And that is certainly something that as the year goes on, we can discuss and see if it's possible or not. We typically assign lockers alphabetically by grade, and our enrollment and that organization will shift as we gain students and lose students. But that's certainly something that we can think about.
Thank you. Next question. When will 6th grade pick up Chromebooks?
Students,
I don't know that answer. Actually, Jenna, you're on here. Can we leverage you? If you
Brian is probably on here too with like the most up to date, but 6th graders have their same Chromebook that were previously assigned last year. Same for 7th and 8th. So new to the district, they'll pick them up probably the first day of school or second day of school.
So in years past, and Jenna and Ryan, correct me if I overstep here, we've had a number of new Chromebooks ready for student pickup as school starts. I don't know if that would be the same practice, but we're pretty good about getting our new students Chromebooks because we need to use them.
And we have just one more question. Our bus is running at near full capacity. How will it work that the SMS run is also the late bus for Shaker High School?
So that's a great question. And buses are scheduled to be at or near full capacity. However, we didn't send out a transportation survey. So we do anticipate a number of families driving. And if you're able to accommodate that, we encourage that at this point. So additionally, a number of students have after school activities. So because we have to provide a spot on a bus for every child, we anticipate having openings in the afternoon. Additionally, transportation is going to schedule 2 to 3 overflow buses in the afternoon, just in case that situation arises where they're actually, let's just point out that Mr. Lang's lights went out. That's just a little comic relief. So if there are buses that end up full, we certainly have the ability to overflow them onto what's called an overflow bus. I asked to make sure that if high schoolers were coming to our buses, that our 6th and 7th and 8th graders who are riding regular routes home would not be overflowed. And the answer is that's correct. The high school students who were creating an overage, we would have them ride the overflow bus so that our students were on their assigned bus. Are there more questions, Mrs. McFawn?
Yeah, there are a few more questions coming through. One is, if our child's transportation plan changes, like taking the bus or being picked up, how can we notify our children of a daily change? So how can parents communicate to their child if there's a change?
Ms. Lang, do you recall how we've done that in the past?
Typically, there would be a call into the hall office, and we would try our best to get a message to the student. If the earlier that information is known by a family member, the better to contact us, because it gets pretty hectic near dismissal time and it's harder to get messages to students. So if you decide that you're not going to have your child take the bus as normal, please call the hall office as early as possible so that we can get that information to your child.
And I would also add that we're adding 3 hall monitors to our school this year, which will make communication a little easier because we can radio a monitor to relay a message to a student when we didn't necessarily have that capacity in the past.
And then we have one question, which is, are the same mitigation procedures that we use in school used in the transportation department?
Buses are not, the 3-foot distancing does not exist on buses. So that piece is a no. But in terms of, I'm not up to date at this point on the cleaning practices. I would imagine we're cleaning as we did last year, but I need to make sure I know that for sure before I answer that question with certainty. So that's something we can get back to you on. on the group. I'll send it out in an email.
Oh, there's one more question about mass breaks.
So we're still waiting for an update on what is expected in mask breaks. So I don't want to speak for what the district is going to come out with. I think that's a higher level question, and we will probably want to be consistent across all divisions with whatever our message is.
And that's it.
So we have some additional, we will send out updates a week from tomorrow. If I can get some information on the questions you just asked, I will send them out sooner. But you know, we want to make sure you all have as much information as you all can, because that's important. Obviously, as parents entrusting us with your children, you need to know as much as you can. So everything we can get to you, we will. Here's our contact information. This is all updated on the website. Thank you, Mrs. McFawn, for doing that. Questions in the chat about music, not general music, performance groups, and how are the mitigation practices in there. It's my understanding right now that similar to last year, there will be coverings of the wind instruments. It's unclear. I think at this point, it's still 3 feet, that's not having to be 6 feet. If we have to go to 6 feet for those kind of things, performance groups are really inhibited in terms of the ability with the number of, we have upwards of 2/3 to 3/4 of our students are in performance groups. It's something that obviously our district prides ourselves in, because we have amazing students and amazing teachers. So that would certainly have an impact. But obviously, if it's decided health and safety wise that that's the best thing to do, then we would have to make that adjustment. But we don't have information that's solid on that piece right now. There was another question there that I missed.
There's a question about orientation, I believe, for parents. So the question is, when can we expect parent orientation?
Is that question referencing like a open house kind of a concept?
Oh, yes, open house. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So what we've done, we are talking about potentially having a middle school launching sometime in October. I don't know that we'd have the whole building open at that point in time. If possible, we would like a time where you could come through and access the building, because obviously having a visual of where your child's spending the day is an important part as a parent. I get that. We also need to do it safely. But I think for open house this year, we've talked about a lot of the feedback we got from having teacher videos posted so that you can access that in a time that works for you. It doesn't involve having to get childcare and eat dinner while you're driving to get to this building, to run around a schedule that, again, and I'm sure there's some people that have enjoyed it, but a lot of the feedback we've gotten is that having posted videos from the individuals that are interacting with your children on a daily basis and being able to access that on your own time has really been helpful. So that is our intention right now. I don't have an exact timeline for when we'll have that going, but that's the plan.
There's a question regarding whether or not visitors to the building have to show proof of vaccination.
We have not been, I will bring that forward. I have not been told that at this point. That's a great question though, because thank you for asking that.
There's another question regarding what is the difference between the principals and the dean?
Yeah, so in terms of roles and divisions, the building's really divided in two. So Mrs. Lang will really be the lead support for students in everyday interactions regarding anyone in Haystack or Wright Hall. And Ms. Sheeler, the same for anyone in Skylight and Algonquin. Ms. McFawn will be supporting specific situations a lot, often regarding sixth graders. So she may be involved in any situation that comes up with your child, if most likely if they're sixth grade. But there's also situations that happen in school where sometimes we need to have multiple minds on it. So that piece could come up as well. But there's also specific roles that our dean's going to be involved with in terms of liaison to some of the other wider district mission pieces that we have going on that you'll hear more about at a later time. But the main contact will be your hall principal, and that's likely who you'd hear from first if your child, depending on which hall your child's in.
Then there's a question, can another forum like this be held a few weeks into the school year?
Sure. And I just got an email. Thank God for technology. I just got an email from Mrs. Keogh. Thanks, Debbie. Debbie is saying that the 3-foot. Deb, I'm just going to read your email because it's going to make more sense. If I can figure out how to get your email up without closing this whole PowerPoint. I think Deb said it's solid. It is certain that it is 3 feet, and in terms of performance groups, it's 3 feet and masked, or 3 feet with covers on bells for our wind instruments. So she's saying, who is our director of music, that is the answer right now. Thank you for that, Deb. Just seeing if there's any other questions from our parents. But yes, we can absolutely have another parent forum, because the more opportunities you all have to ask questions, the more I think we're all on the same page. And that's one of the things I wanted to bring up here at the end. I think as challenging as last year was, we got through it because we all stuck together. And I think, we may have hurdles and challenges. I think I see this year as much more optimistic in terms of our abilities to provide our students with a really diverse and meaningful experience that's not completely out of whack. But I think whatever hurdles come, as long as we stick together and communicate, we will get through this. We want to thank those parents on here who have been asking questions. You did exactly what we wanted, to ask those things that weren't clear. So we can't thank you enough, especially with short notice. And we're looking forward to a great year, and you'll hear from us soon. So thank you all. Have a great night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.